High school guru, where shall we begin?
Well, we have a lot of local teams facing each other this weekend for high school football.
Homecoming weekend.
Yeah. Well, we have Dartmouth at New Bedford Friday night. Big game. I think New Bedford has lost the last two or three, at least three. I think Buddy had in his story.
It's a lot more even this year because Dartmouth has taken a bit of a step back after losing Artie Lynch and Jordan Todman and Sean Sylvia over the last couple of years. That should be that could be a game of the week candidate.
Yeah. I mean, it most likely will be. New Bedford. I mean, I know last week I sat here and said New Bedford was our best team. I still think they are our best team or one of our best teams. They just it just seems like they don't have luck on their side. They had the tie earlier in the season. They lost 8-7 this past week, and they ended up there was a penalty on the extra point for Sandwich, and then on the point after, and then they ended up going for two, and they got the 2-point conversion. So I mean, right there, they were leading pretty much the whole game until I think it was the third quarter, and then a penalty, kind of cost them.
It's an odd, and I kind of think the weather had to come into it a little bit because New Bedford does carry a kicker.
Yeah.
And they drove down the field down 8-7 and got inside the 5.
Well, New Bedford was the one that scored the extra point. It was they were up 7-0, and then Sandwich scored to make it 6-7.
7-6.
And then it was going to be tied game 7-7, and then a penalty on New Bedford.
Was it roughing the kicker, I believe?
Yep, I think it was roughing the kicker. And then Sandwich decided to go for two, and then they got the 2-point conversion, and the rest is history. They lose by 1.
It's just I think there was a stuff in there too. When New Bedford had the ball, they got it back.
Yeah.
And drove down the field. That game just kind of strikes me as more like their tie game with the lights being an issue.
Yeah.
Luck is really probably the best way to summarize, or bad luck.
Yeah, bad luck.
How their season has gone.
I mean, just looking over, the scoring leaders, they have John Williams up there. He's second in the area with actually, I guess fourth in the area. He's got 8 touchdowns. Also, Miles Hebert has 8, and Taylor Mata has 8. E.J. Bennett is leading the area with 9. That kind of takes us into the next big game is Old Rochester at Wareham. E.J. Bennett's got 9 touchdowns, and Hubert has 8. I mean, that should be an exciting game Friday night. 2 SCC teams. I guess you would say Wareham's maybe not struggling. They've lost 2 straight. One was to DR, but you got to feel like the kids are a little down this year.
Mm-hmm.
They came in as the SEC favorites, and they lost to Fairhaven and then to DR. I know they lost to Somerset in the middle of that too, non-league. But I know Dan Nault was saying after the game against DR that his kids are ready for Old Rochester. They lost to him last year. I think it was by 1 point, and this is kind of their Super Bowl. Big game for them. And I know Old Rochester. It's a big rivalry. I'm sure the kids will be up there. So.
And that Fairhaven team that Wareham lost to, they're a very good team, and it's really all through Mott. I mean, I have not seen a lot of local high school sports, so I'll hold my tongue on most of this, but I did see Fairhaven when they upset Wareham early in the season. And that's an offense that their defense is very good, but that's an offense that Mott is basically driving the train, in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, see, I actually have to apologize to Fairhaven because I didn't really even give them a chance last week against King Philip.
I don't think you were alone.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought, hey, you come, you score a touchdown or 2, and you say that's a moral victory. I saw Fairhaven against Apponequet, and maybe that wasn't their best showing, since that was one of their 2 losses this year, and Apponequet at the time had been struggling. So I really thought Fairhaven, was a little overrated after the Wareham win.
Mm-hmm.
But really, I mean, they've showed that they can play the tough teams and come out with a win. I mean, it really it comes down to Mata, and it comes down to Miles Paransovic. Those 2 kids just they really power the team. And I know against Apponequet, they kind of had some unlucky plays. They had a couple penalties. They had a couple things that didn't go their way. But I mean, they knocked off a team that was undefeated. This week they have Case, which Case was winless, but they had a win. One of their teams had to forfeit because of an ineligible player. I can't think of the team off the top of my head, but they have 1 win. So they're 1-5. But Fairhaven's they can't really look past Case. Because they have Old Rochester next week too, and then the week after that they have DR. So, I mean, you got to kind of win these next two games to even go into the DR game, hoping to, it'll come down to the SCC
It's the
title.
classic Philly going to Oakland last week. Um, that's why they play the games. I
Yeah.
say from my cliches I have written on the wall over there to assist me through the show.
But I apologize to Fairhaven High. You guys are definitely one of the top teams in the area up there. Another team that I knew would get stronger as the year went on is Apponequet. They opened the year with Middleborough. They beat Middleborough, and then they lost, some SEC games. I think it was two straight. And now, they're 4-2. They're looking pretty good. They beat Durfee, blanked them last week, 28-0. Nate Michael had three touchdowns in that game, and they've won three straight. And if you look at it, they have Voke this week. Who do they have next week? I can't think off the top of my head. But I want to say their next three games that they could win before they meet up with Dighton Rehoboth. Actually, they already played Dighton Rehoboth. I think it's Wareham they meet up with coming up. But they really could finish, 7-4, or even better than that. And I don't think anybody really picked them to do that well, this year with all the young kids and their early struggles. Voke, they've been able to score. They just haven't been able to score more than their opponents.
They've got half of the game figured out.
Yeah, I know they had a slow start last week to Bourne, the game against Bourne. I think you were at that game, right, Tim?
Yeah, and that's really what killed them. I mean, they were down 16-0 pretty quick, and they were playing from behind the rest of the time. And if the team that played the second half had played the first half, then I think Vogue would have won that one going away.
Yeah, their quarterback's thrown. I want to say it's almost double digits in touchdowns this year. I think it's like 9 or so. He's about to either tie the school record or break it. They can put up points. They just seem like they have those laps or two throughout the game.
Yeah, defense is definitely a problem for them, especially run defense. And that's something that when I talked to Coach Allaire back when they played Wareham, it was what he was talking about then, and he was still talking about it again this week, although they are improving as a defense. One key thing with Vogue is that DJ Silvera, the running back, has been, at least the quarterback told me after the game, Drew Fournette told me that Silvera has been battling an injury and that he's almost back to 100%. So I think that if he is completely healthy and they can add that aspect back in to kind of make teams respect the run and not focus so much on shutting down Burris, then I think that they're going to be a much better team in the second half of the season here.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup, that one, because Apponequet, that their game is running. That their quarterback Matt Shell, he's young, and they're not going to pass the ball more than 5 times in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So if Vogue can really stop their running game, they might have a shot at Apponequet.
But again, that being their Achilles heel.
Yeah.
Let's hope this is the week they can turn it around.
Yeah. The other big game on Friday night is the Eastern Athletic Conference. Bishop Stang is hosting Fian, which, if the past is any indication, it should be a tough night for Stang.
Let's hope the past is not any indication, even though it usually has something to do with what we've seen.
Yeah, Bishop Fian comes in off a 19-6 win over Coyle Cassidy. They have a great balanced running attack. They're 4-1. Stang got their first win, was it 2 weeks ago? Last week they lost to Carver. The thing that worries me about Stang is they've only scored 6 touchdowns all year. In 5 games you got to score more than 6 touchdowns.
Yeah.
That it's tough to get the offense going there. So hopefully, we'll see. Hoping to Saturday's game, we have Old Colony is hosting Nantucket. It's here. Old Colony lost to Nantucket in their first meeting last month, 27-6. Nantucket's 3-3. Old Colony, they're 1-5. They lost last week to Tri-County, 27-8. They're just struggling to get the offense going. That they have kids, but they don't have a lot of them. And they don't have a lot of stars. So they have these kids that are playing both ways, and they're tired. That's what their coach keeps telling me week after week is, they're getting tired. They're in there, and then they give up a big play, and next thing you know, you're down by a couple touchdowns. And but hopefully they'll have a good showing on Saturday, and depending on how the weather is, that might indicate how the game goes. I think it's supposed to be raining Saturday. Hopefully Friday night will be clear from what I hear.
Old Colony did score the last 8 points of that game, though, so they're rolling toward next week.